or
I think they're crapping their knickers that it will. And to be honest, I hope it does pass, and I hope it does pass with parental alienation as a form of domestic abuse, because then that really will put the cat among the pigeons.
well, unfortunately, in the states you have 50 states, so you can only change one state at a time, really. That's the problem with divorce law and stuff like that.
I always thought federal law stood over state laws.
It depends on what it is and well, that's true now more than it used to be, but like there's no federal divorce law, for example. It's all state law. Uh, I mean, there is the Violence Against Women Act, I guess, but um, generally, it really depends on what it is you're talking about, whether or not federal law um, is interested. Like I said, there's no federal divorce law. It's all state law.
Would that not make things a lot better in America if all laws come from the federal government rather than from state?
Oh no, especially this federal government controlled by the Democrats. No, it's going to be authoritarian. Basically, America has turned into an authoritarian nightmare because of that.
How many executive orders was it Biden signed on his first couple of days in office?
40. I've heard 43, but Trump is the Trump was the dictator. Oh yeah, Trump was the dictator. Meanwhile, Biden's ruling by executive fiat. Give me a break. Um,
Yeah, that was all Trump derangement syndrome. There was actually no basis for any of it.
Of course not. And I felt like the movie They Live with Riley Piper. I feel like I live in that, where I'm the one wearing the sunglasses who see reality as it really is, and all my family and friends are asleep. But I guess you could also say that in general with men's rights. You know.
Yeah, we should move on to men's rights because I have just started the stream. So, welcome to the weekly live stream. It's currently on Saturday. We're just trying this out. So, if you like it, come along and have a chat. And if you don't, I guess don't. You can tell us about that too, and we'll probably listen. Maybe. I'm kidding. We will listen. Okay. This chat is about. We were just talking about. What were you talking about, Painter and Waterken, in terms of this particular subject?
Well, it was more the current political state in America and how it's a microcosm for the discussion around the men's rights movement or men's rights and the men's rights movement.
We probably shouldn't get into that particular uh, topic unless we have strong focus on men's rights. Otherwise, we're going to get very much distracted, I think.
I
Well,
got no.
yeah, Maud was just talking about the fact that it feels like he's the only person in his family who has a clear understanding of what's going on, and that's pretty much the same thing with being a men's rights activist. You have to see what's going on in order to be an MRA, and it does feel like 99% of the population are either ignorant or just walking around with their eyes closed.
Yeah, yeah, it does feel an awful lot like that. I've talked to people about it, and it's people often just don't get it. It's like uh, a long time ago, I think I mentioned this on the sub. I was at this charity fundraiser sale, like selling tea and biscuits and stuff, fair trade and that. And the one of the organizers wanted me to sign this thing, which was talking about, I can't remember the specific thing, but it was calling out probably violence against women or something. And well, it was something like that. And I was saying, okay, but what about the men too? And she was literally like, the women are more important. Like the women are the center of the family. They are far more important. And she was very, very proud of that idea. You know, it's like a nationalistic pride.
Well, if you think about it, feminism itself and that makes no sense because that's women are if women are more important, then like it just doesn't measure up to the feminist line that women are oppressed if women are treated better than men, if women have certain rights and certain privileges that men just don't have. It just doesn't measure up to reality.
Well,
If that
some
makes
pigs are more equal than others.
Yeah, I guess that's the way to put it.
I've said it before on stream, I've said it on Twitter, and I'll say it again. Feminism is the real patriarchy.
I've been saying that for a while now. I'm not sure who started that, but like it's very very much the truth. They are in the government. They have all these lobbies and they have all these institutions in the government. The government does what they want, and therefore, if the world isn't the way they, you know, isn't totally equal, then it's not because men holding women back. It's because women holding society back, or rather, feminists holding society back because there are male feminists too. I mean, I shouldn't sorry, I shouldn't tar the gender group. It's the ideology that's at fault.
Yep, and because it's men that are signing these laws, the feminists get to walk away and say they had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, these feminists have control of men. Right now, we've got known domestic abusers who are writing a domestic abuse law and fiddling with it and trying to make it so that men aren't included in it.
Yeah, Layla Moran, and I can't remember the other woman's name. But
They're
yeah, I know the
champion.
people you're talking.
I
Yeah,
think it's champion anyway. Hey, it's really disgusting because they're selling women short, they're selling men short, they're messing up society. They're going to get children abused because they're giving the children automatically to the women, even though the woman might be the abuser. You know, it's 50-50. So, you know, one of them's going to be the abuser. If you always give the children to the woman, then half the time you're going to be giving them to the abuser. I mean, you know, just on a pure mathematical sort of, you know, generalization that. But it's true. It's like a lot of the time you are going to be giving the children to the abuser if you favor just one gender. Like it's the same with men. If men always got the children, then you'd be giving the children to the abuser like about the same amount of the time.
the thing was, what back in the 1800s or whatever it was, men were getting the children. Hence the reason we've.
Oops, I think he might have lost his connection there. So what were you saying, Painter?
Sorry, my phone decided to kick me out. I was saying men used to get custody of the children all the time. Hence the reason we've now got the tender years doctrine.
Yeah, I mean, although the tender years doctrine is supposedly shot down, in practice it's not. It is still the same thing. And we've got video footage of lawyers like being taught by like I don't know the terminology, but like they're being taught by other lawyers to basically cheat the system by using what has been known as the silver bullet by accusing, which is accusing the man of abuse, and it goes through to their office, and they basically just sit on it for the duration of the trial, the divorce proceeding, so that it has to be taken seriously by the court, and that if they throw it out as spurious, which it is in a lot of cases, then the man's going to have a leg up in the court. But if they keep hold of it, and if they basically validate it as much as they can without actually, pushing it through, then they can just get the divorce they want and then discard it without ever having to do anything about it. I mean, at least that's what I think they were doing. It's very, very hard, and it's all wrapped up in legalese. But I mean, people can watch the video if they want to. I'm sorry if that was a bit overly rambly and convoluted.
As Karen Strawn said, women need to consign feminism to the dustbin of history, and unfortunately, it's not something men can do.
Well, they do, and unfortunately, they get a lot of advantages from it, so there's not really any motive for them to do that. It would be like women voting for a equal draft, which is something that they have voted against in, I think, Norway.
Speaking of the draft, by the way, I've been involved in a bit of a thing on Twitter. There was someone on there claiming that the draft was violence against women in America.
Really? Oh, I have to hear this. Come on.
Hang on, I'll see if I can find the thread on Twitter.
This is going to be fun. Did they use the Hillary quote? Well, while he's finding that, has anyone seen that what's it called? The Australian domestic violence adverts that have been posted in the chat? They're really quite insane if you analyze them. They're basically all about how men are inherently evil and how you have to train them like dogs to make sure they don't bite people and stuff.
What I've done, Human, is I've shared the Twitter link. You're gonna have to dig through it a little tiny bit, but you'll be able to see the full conversation in there. I'm not going to bore people by reading all the tweets.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that we'd have to go through beforehand or later on and talk about. But could you give us the gist of it?
Right, hang on 2 seconds. So I'll try and do this. Okay. So Benjamin Boyce put out a tweet 3 days ago, which said, "I get pressure to add men's rights issues to my gender series, and it's a fair point and topic to cover, but I frankly don't want the audience that's attracted to that content, especially considering the disrespectful shlubbery that gets addended to my conversations with women." And somebody commented, "These people are getting men's rights mixed up with common social mental health and cultural issues that are not specific to men." Comment was then put on, "Yes, like the male only draft, which is apparently not a male specific problem." Exactly. And then the next reply to that is, "Exactly, it's a sex discrimination issue against women. If the draft itself is the issue, that's a national security one, not a men's rights one." And then somebody commented, "Do you do yoga to be able to do such extreme mental contortions? The state declares its own men's lives, and declares it owns men's lives, and that somehow either sexist against women or gender neutral. You're disgusting." And then there's, should there be a draft? Should women be included in the draft? If answer to one is yes. Either your argument is that you think there should be a draft and that it doesn't discriminate against women, or you think there should be a draft, it's really not complicated. And somebody's put, there should be no draft because the draft is an evil violation of human rights. It's an evil perpetrated exclusively against men. Women are spared from it, therefore it is a men's rights issue. Would you say US slavery was not a black rights issue? And then this person's commented, "It's civil rights, not black rights, because it's about all racial discrimination. In 1918, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the 13th Amendment does not protect citizens from mandatory military service in times of war." They then commented, "In 1981, the Supreme Court ruled that male-only registration did not violate the Constitution because the draft was meant to provide replacements for combat troops." And then an MRA has commented, "And in 2019, the male-only draft was ruled unconstitutional because it discriminates against men," with a Wikipedia link. "It's a men's rights issue whether you like it or not." Then this other person commented, "It was ruled unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment because it violates women's civil rights because in 1981, the Supreme Court ruled that male-only registration did not violate the Constitution because the draft was meant to provide replacements for combat troops." And then comment was, "No, that's not why it was ruled unconstitutional. It was ruled that because it violates men's equal protection clause, in other words, discrimination against men." And then the court ruled it unconstitutional under the Fifth Amendment by violating the due process clause, since the restrictions on women serving in combat roles in the military were present at the time of the decision in Rosca no longer applied. And men and women are therefore similarly situated for purposes of a draft or registration for a draft.
Oh, that's just one huge train wreck of a conversation, isn't it? Oh man.
Well, I've commented on there. If that were the case, women would be legally obliged as men are to sign up for the selective service, also known as the draft. That's not the case. I got a condescending reply to that. And then I said, "Piece of advice, don't try to be condescending when you haven't proofread your own tweet. It's well, not will." And then I just got a stupid GIF sent to me.
Ah, yes, the GIF. The GIF that they like to give us when they don't have a reply. Yeah, that does sound like a fairly typical conversation with those sorts of people.
And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Laura brought something up the other day. She'd had a similar discussion about the draft, and somebody saying it was violence against women. I cannot believe the mental gymnastics involved to make that work.
I think it's quite an interesting contrast with that first tweet where they're the tweets after that where they're talking about how they don't like how crazy we are, and like, we're all sort of evil sexists, but then, just scroll down slightly, and it's unrepentant sexism against men just all the way. It's really quite amazing how blind some people can be to their own BS. It's amazing. I'm gonna have a good read of that thread and maybe retweet some of the prime examples. Okay. Anything else interesting this week?
I've been involved in a conversation on YouTube regarding Chloe Roma.
Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, I've been watching a couple of her videos. I'm sure most people know who she is. And one comment that was put up was, wow, a woman advocating for men, she's a hero. And I thought, what about the women that have been doing it for the last 50 odd years?
Well, I don't know who she is, but if she's advocating for men, then that's a good thing, and I don't think we should scorn her for doing that. I mean, I don't feel like, she didn't get in the race 50 years ago.
No,
I don't think that's
it's
a good
not.
reason.
It's not quite that. It's the way she goes about it. I mean, her videos are short, sharp, and sort of entertaining. But she's also got an OnlyFans account and all this sort of stuff. So, and it doesn't it doesn't always seem to me that she knows that much of what she's talking about. The fact that she's positioned herself as the only woman who's talking about this stuff and that she gets hell for it, I'm quite certain she does get quite a lot of stick. But I don't think she's gone through anything like what Erin went through, for instance.
I'm not sure if this is the same woman I'm thinking of, but there are some female YouTubers now with OnlyFans accounts and things like that who will talk about issues like this affect men and will then redirect them into basically purple pill ideology stuff. And it's basically tainting the movement. They're basically repeating things other MRAs and MGTOW have said, and then twisting it around and basically giving out bad advice and things like that, and basically relying on personality and like looks to get money. Pretty much, it's I'm not super familiar with them, but I have seen a few clips of people doing this, and it is quite interesting, and there may be something behind it, because I don't think that most real MRAs would have a OnlyFans.
No, it's a lot of it is, she's just saying the odd little soundbite or what have you. She's not really going particularly deep into any of these issues. Like I say, some of what she says is good. Some of it's interesting. Some of it is, quite entertaining. And she is putting this stuff out there. But by the same token, I don't necessarily think she'd be someone we'd want as a spokesperson for this movement.
Sorry,
That's
who
Clara
is
then.
this? Who's sorry, I didn't
Hmm.
have the sound running for some reason, kicked out. Who are we talking about?
Chloe Roma.
Oh yeah, think before you speak the entire video series destroying her, I think.
Do you want to tell us about that, Mordecai?
Uh, he just basically just roasted her and other people who basically come out and pretend to be MRAs in men's issues, MGTOWs, all the manosphere stuff in order to basically get clicks and attention. Primarily, you can tell it's when I was active in the movement in 2014, 2015, they were complaining about it then. Uh, Basically, women, pretty attractive young women who come out and just basically parrot the MRA line without actually believing in it in order to get clicks and attention. So that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I saw any of the same clips you did, but I did see quite a bit of stuff from people I couldn't name, but like basically just tag alongs and well, I mean, I think we should be happy that we're big enough that we've managed to get bandwagoners, but it's uh, it's disturbing that people like that are basically derailing attention away from movement, the core movement, towards their own content, which they're basically selling. Is very annoying because none of us here are in it for the money, but it sounds an awful lot like these people are.
Yeah, I think that's why she's doing it. Her backstory is tragic, and I can certainly understand if she'd have gone the other way. And maybe if she hadn't have got the OnlyFans account and all that sort of stuff, she might be more someone we want to bring on board.
Wait, is she a tattoo lady, multiple suicide attempts, traumatic brain injury? What's her name? Oh, damn. Sorry, her name keeps vanishing from my head because I'm bad with.
You can't miss her if you see her. She is covered in tattoos. She's about half an inch across. She's very, very skinny and sort of dark hair. And her videos normally take place like in a mirror with her holding her phone, so like in the bathroom or in a bedroom or something.
I don't know about Mirror, but I'm pretty sure I can visualize the person you're talking about, and she's not the sort of person who should be giving people advice. In fact, she should be in orthotherapy. But yeah, well, not really much we can do. I mean, we can deconstruct her content, but really, mostly, I think that would just send more views her way. Okay, so has anyone seen that Australian domestic violence advert that was shared? I can't.
Just one more thing. I shared that video I was talking about in the voice chat.
Oh, cool.
You can watch it afterwards. It's think before you sleep, essentially just destroying her. I haven't seen those Australian. Can you post it in voice chat so I can see them?
I had a quick hunt around the Discord and I can't actually find it because I think it's been buried. But if anyone knows where it is, could you just like grab it and stick it in there? I'm gonna have another look.
I'm pretty sure Laura posted it in Men's Rights Human, so Australia is probably one of the most heavily feminist countries there is. I remember seeing adverts a couple of years ago for homelessness intervention, and it said, was it 1 in 4 homeless people were women? It's like, well, who are the other 3/4 then? Also, sort of moving away from Australia, in America, you had the adverts that have been put up in US universities and colleges regarding consent and rape and what have you. And it was, John was drunk, Josie was drunk, they had sex, John got done for rape. It's utterly ridiculous.
Are these current ads or older? Because I'm doing a DuckDuckGo search and they're coming up, but it's like 4 years old.
I think there are things that are probably still on the TV occasionally. It's very hard to know because I'm not in Australia, but they do come up in conversation quite often. Yeah, I'm not finding it. Sorry, but we all know. I think we've all seen those adverts. Like it's things like a mother being terrified of her own little kid. Oh wait, no, sorry. It was it was partner abuse, but sorry, I misremembered that one. Basically, it was this evil man, and it's always an evil man in all of these adverts, like standing over this woman with like flickering lamps and things like that, and he turns into a child, and he turns into an adult again. It's like men are children, and you have to train them like dogs when they're little and stuff like that. Is all these sorts of connotations and like you've got to get them when they're young and make sure they don't turn into evil men and I'm misremembering it probably, and I'm quite tired. But I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. It's stuff like it's all focused on this dynamic that women are helpless and men are evil abusers who are like rabid dogs about to bite everyone, and you've got to train them from little children. You've got to call out your friends when they randomly have abusive phone calls right in the middle of like a cafe, and it's really really stupid stuff that isn't going to solve anything. But it is probably going to be very damaging for the like image of men as victims.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of the person that posted the video. I think I've spoken about this before, but it's a female victim of domestic abuse who put an open letter to Amber Heard on YouTube, and she made the comment about what Amber Heard has done and the damage it's going to do to male victims of domestic violence, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and when Amber is revealed as a massive liar, it's going to be covered up because it's going to show that the narrative is wrong and that women can be abusers and they can be evil and stuff like that. But we have to make sure it isn't covered up because the papers are going to basically just not cover it when it's revealed that it has been revealed, but when it's proven in court or something like that. And I am hoping that he is going to take her to task with this because with a good lawyer and a fair judge, she's got no chance whatsoever.
Well, apparently Disney have apologised to Johnny Depp. I don't know how true that is.
I heard a rumor that they were sending him lawyers even. but it is a rumor as far as I am aware. I mean, it has been in a news article, but it's really difficult to know what's going on because like I said, rumors and speculation and stuff like that. I mean, I hope that's true, but it's really it's really kind of amazing that Amber can have the incredible moving bruise and the stories that don't stack up and audio tapes where she admits abusing him and to actually say in court that she slammed his head in a door and stuff like that. And she's still being treated as the victim by the papers, and he's being treated as the abuser. And stories covering the trial never note how obvious it is that he's being abused and all that sort of stuff. It's just crazy.
Do you think this is one of the first times it's been mainstream that, like very mainstream, that an accusation has been false? I kind of disagree that mainstream media hasn't covered the false allegations at all. I think they've been a little quieter about it because they messed up at first, but I think it's pretty easy to find the information. And like that the videos were pretty prominent when she was admitting to hitting him and with the sister and all of that.
Well, I can't deny they're being quiet. It's just, I mean, the main thing that I've seen is the son gloating over him losing that libel trial. I couldn't even read that whole article. I really, really wanted to slap whoever wrote it and the people who published it. It was breathtakingly awful.
That's a British.
Sorry I'm late, everybody. I had an unexpected work obligation this morning, and that's why I was late. But can I get just a brief? What's the topic this week? What are we talking about? I know you were talking about Johnny Depp. Sounds like.
Yeah, Kathleen, do you want to take this because you were about to speak anyway?
I was just asking if that's probably one of the most prominent cases where it's been proven false and the public's kind of realized it. I haven't read the Sun's publication. I don't know if that's a British publication, but I know that there was the Lacrosse trial a couple years ago with the false rape allegation. But I think those are the only ones I've seen covered in mainstream media, really, where they've questioned some of the allegations more heavily.
There's Liam Allen in the UK. He spent almost 2 years in prison for false allegation, and it came out that police withheld evidence from multiple cases and left men in jail for many years, many added years, about 1 or 2 years each. Even though they had texts and they had evidence proving their innocence, they withheld the evidence from court.
And that's been a big case in where everyone.
It was big in the UK. I didn't see it covered much in US media outlets, but I know, and Ma, tell me if I'm wrong here, I think it was a decently big case in the UK.
It was decently big right up, I think, until The Guardian posted an article saying that we shouldn't talk about it because it hurts women. The long and short of it was that police were trained by a feminist chief prosecutor to withhold evidence in rape trials that proved innocence in order to gain extra convictions. And there was also rape quotas. They wanted 60% of cases to go through. 60% had to be wins, and all sorts of stuff like that. I don't think the public is particularly aware of it, even though it was front page news, because it appeared it was a brief and very violent fire in the news, and then it vanished. And I do mean brief, but he was a sort of a mini celebrity for a little while. But
what's interesting about the Liam Allen case is it was the prosecuting barrister who went to the judge and offered no evidence in the case. The other thing is Liam Allen was a criminology student.
Yeah, wasn't it the prosecutor in that case who actually admitted that there was tampering or called it out?
He called it out. What happened was he went to the CPS and obviously the police officers that were presenting evidence, and basically he was crossing his I's and dotting his T's, as it were. Crossing his T's and dotting his I's. He said, "Have I got all of the evidence in this case?" And the police turned around and said that we've got various text messages and things, but they're not important. And as soon as he basically turned around and said, "I want to read those messages," and did so, he realised he had no evidence against Liam Allen. And that, in fact, Liam Allen was the victim of sexual harassment.
Yeah, and there was also the 40 or 50 other rape trials, men in prison who are possibly going to have their cases reviewed because of this, and they may have had it reviewed already. But this is a very interesting case, especially when you realize that a lot of feminists are fighting against phones being looked at and things like that, because very, very, very often text messages completely vindicate the man in the case, and it'll be something like she's texting him the next day saying that she had a great time and stuff like that, and when we meet again, and it's it is very, very interesting that they just hate evidence. They hate the idea of truth because it doesn't conform with their narrative and it doesn't uphold what they want to be true, which is a very interesting thing that they want to be true, because what they want to be true is men, evil, dictatorial oppressors in relationships, attacking and hunting women in the streets and stuff like that. And they want that so badly, but I don't really know why, except that it grants them power. I don't. What I'm saying is, I don't think that that's power as a price. I'm sorry, power is worth the price that they are basically trying to pay, which is, to sacrifice men and to make women terrified and to basically dismantle society bit by bit. I don't think that's worth it. And what is power worth when it's really just power to ruin everything? But obviously they want it, so.
Something that's kind of interesting. I was just doing some more research because I hadn't looked at the Johnny Depp thing in a while. When I typed Johnny Depp into Google, this first article that came up that was posted yesterday is actually Amber Heard on abuse allegations against Marilyn Manson, and she's saying, "Are you done ignoring it yet?" Even though I think she's been pretty thoroughly discredited, even with mainstream media, not in any niche circles. But that's the first thing that comes up when you type in Johnny Depp's name, is more stuff about domestic abuse against women.
Well, she is supposedly a spokesman on it, and it's interesting that so many of these spokesmen are actually abusers.
Yep, and there was a suggestion. I'm sure everyone remembers Rihanna and Chris Brown, and there was actually a suggestion that Rihanna was the abuser, and Chris Brown basically just knocked her out to make her stop.
If I recall, it was like I'm not sure that's true, but it was that he was driving and she was grabbing the wheel, and it was a risk of a crash or an accident. But I'm not sure if that's true, so I don't want to say that's what happens. But I remember reading something along those lines, and it was the injuries that she had was due to a car crash or something like that. But that's all very shaky and very shady with that story.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily like leap on that and start bandying it about until we've got proof of it.
Well, it's one that Cassie J looked into, and she did find some evidence of it, but she didn't find enough. On the Amber Heard thing, is anyone actually surprised that she's sticking her beak in this other stuff? I mean, the other person that's come forward is Dita Von Teese, who is an ex-wife of Marilyn Manson's.
Well, when people are virtue signaling, they will often virtue signal as hard as they possibly can. They won't be subtle about it. They will stand up and pretend to be a champion of the very thing they hypocritically do, and they will basically whack that donkey for all it's worth. It's it's quite interesting psychologically. They will basically use advocacy on behalf of something as a way to cover for their own guilt, and it's annoying how effective it is for certain people.
What's interesting about Dita Von Teese is she's gone full-blown Winona Ryder, and she has basically said that in her relationship with Marilyn Manson, she never experienced anything like what's being described.
Oh, really? That is interesting. So if I'm getting the names right, Amber is basically advocating on behalf of a very confused woman who doesn't know what she's talking about.
She's advocating on behalf. I can't remember the woman. Was it Rachel Evan Wood? Has come out and said that Marilyn Manson has done X, Y, and Z, and Dita Von Teese has come out and said that's not the man I knew. So it's very much. It sounds. It's almost a carbon copy of what's been going on with Johnny Depp. You've got one woman saying one thing and one saying that doesn't sound like the man I knew.
This is kind of why I tell people to look up Fatty Arbuckle and his story. I actually had a great article on it that I've unfortunately lost, but the entire case is basically a template for what's going on with Johnny Depp, and I guess with Manson now as well. I'm sure you've all read up on this 1930s silent comedian, but the long and short of it was that he was considered the nicest guy in Hollywood, and he was at a party where a woman suffered basically a ruptured stomach. It wasn't anything to do with him. He helped her. Then these two grifters came in and said, aha, we can make a buck off of this. And they started putting it about in the press that he'd killed her, like he'd raped and killed her. And it was a sensational story because he was one of the biggest names in Hollywood at the time. He was raking in millions, but after that, nobody would touch him. And the newspapers ate it up, and they weren't interested in the truth at all. And after it was proven, outright proven with not a single shred of doubt that she died basically of natural causes, the papers just carried on, and they just ignored that. And he died a broke man, and still supported by his friends, fortunately. But Charlie Chaplin was one of them, Buster Keaton as well. But very much a ruined man. He died in his 40s, I think.
And I think,
there's a
I'm sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say there's a really good video on that case. Actually, I'm gonna try to find it on Facebook and post it, but I've seen it before.
Please do.
I was just gonna say, I think that this happens all the time, even to non-famous people. And when it's someone who's not a celebrity, you never even hear about it. It happens to some college student, some guy at work, some random guy who went to a bar and met someone dishonest, and it doesn't get counted in the stats. There's no data on it. There's no source for it. You can't find it. But I think this kind of thing, that kind of thing, happens all the time.
Oh, it very
Where
much does.
Falsely accused of all kind, and even I've been called misogynistic before just for disagreeing with a woman and saying, well, I disagree with this for X, Y, and Z. Oh, you only don't take me seriously because I'm a woman. It could be so many different things.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Seneca Mean Girls case was like they just didn't like him, so they accused him of rape, and he ended up in juvie with an ankle tag and stuff like that. And we only hear about that because of the exceptional circumstances around it. So if it's not famous, there's no exceptional circumstance, then the chances are it might not even make the local press. So our best bet to find these stories is to dig through local press. But even then, you're likely not going to hear about 90% of them.
Blue, are you aware of the story of from Amherst College?
No, what's that?
A girl invited her friend's boyfriend back to her dormitory. He was exceptionally drunk. The girl wanted to sleep with him, and he couldn't do anything. She then went on to perform a sex act on him, and later accused him of raping her. In the meantime, she sent text messages to her friends, telling them what she'd done. The bloke got kicked out of college. She didn't, despite the fact that these text messages were made public knowledge.
Well, there have been cases. Sorry, what? I was just going to say there have been cases where the fact that a man accuses a woman on campus of rape is considered, just the fact that he did that is considered sexual harassment, and therefore he gets thrown out. That was a case that happened to somebody who used to be a member of this Discord. And I have heard the tapes and things from that, so I can confirm it.
I mean, this is something that happens so frequently to so many guys, and it happens to women too to some extent as well. But people are told this is a bad thing to say, and this is a bad thing to talk about. And mainstream media, social media, so many people there will attack you for speaking out about this. And exactly you were saying earlier, the Guardian article talking about the Liam Allen case, saying, oh, well, if you talk about this, then you're trying to hurt victims, which is nonsense because it's not about hurting victims. It's about talking about false accusations. But I think this is something that a lot of people think but don't say out loud because they're too afraid to say it out loud.
Well, this is partly why I want to rename those malicious accusations, because basically we've got a twofold problem with that, and the main part of that is that one of the main parts of that is that we do have people asking if they're going to be accused of making a false rape accusation just because they make a rape accusation. Just they go to the police and they talk about it. That's not what we're after, and the fact that people are already worried about that suggests that the propaganda machine is hurting them it's basically feeding them wrong information, and second, that they're getting the wrong idea from the term false accusations. So we really kind of need to change it, because false accusations can be mistaken accusations. They can be she thought that she was raped, or she got the wrong guy, or something like that. It's a bit murky at the edges. But what we're talking about is direct malicious accusations, where somebody sets out to destroy somebody else's career, their life, everything, using accusations. So we really
Often-
kind of need to.
How often do you think people are mistaken about something like that?
Mistaken about, well, the part of the problem is that sometimes there's just no evidence. So, they get worried that if the police can't find evidence, then they'll be accused of making a false accusation. But that's not really how it works. In order for you to get accused of, well, the actual crimes are basically lying to the police and stuff like that. So you get what was it? Contempt of court and something else. It are the actual crimes. So in order to do that, it's basically the standard. You were manufacturing evidence. You admitted to lying, stuff like that. So you really have to be very, very guilty to get charged with this. Like, you have to be that woman who accused 14 different men of rape and sent like 2 of them to prison. You kind of have to. It is quite an extreme level of. There has to be actual proof that you were being malicious, is what I'm saying. If it's just, doesn't go through, it doesn't go through, and they just stop the inquiry.
Maybe
By the way, guys,
Go ahead.
I've found a video talking about this thing at Amherst College. I'm going to post it in the chat now. Hang on.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Kathleen, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, maybe I was kind of misunderstanding what you were saying. It sounded like you said there's a lot of kind of murky cases where women could just be mistaken and they're not actually being malicious in their accusation. And they're afraid they're going to get charged. I think you were saying they're afraid they will be charged if they report something. But, so I think you cleared it up. But,
well,
yeah, I think
okay.
Charged with
Sorry.
that, you do pretty malicious. But it's very.
Sorry, I kept thinking you were stopping, and then you. Sorry. But yeah, it has to be outwardly malicious. To give an example that's actually from Ask the MRA's subreddit, a woman woke up after a drunk night next to a guy with her, basically her clothes around her ankles, and she was confused and disorientated, and she didn't know if she had had intercourse or not, and if she consented or not, and she was asking us what to do. And I think she honestly came to the wrong place, but we answered as best as we could, and we basically asked some questions and things, but she didn't really know anything. As far as I can tell, she didn't know if she was raped or not. So if she went to the police and the police were like, well, we can prove that nothing happened, then she was worried that she would get in trouble. But that's not really how that works. If you go to the police being incredibly honest with your accusation and saying that you aren't sure what happened, please can you piece it back together, then they're going to treat you as a potential victim, and they're going to be very gentle with you, and they're not going to there's not going to be anything bad that happens if you are, if it's found that nothing happened. But if you go to the police and say, yeah, this guy, he raped me, and describe how it happened and all that sort of stuff, but it turns out later that you texted your friend saying, "Ha ha ha! I'm going to get him in so much trouble. I'm telling the police lies. We haven't even like spoken more than twice. That sort of stuff. He he he." Then you can be charged with malicious accusations. I mean, there was a case of two women who lived in a house across from a park, and they were accusing this black guy of random things every single week. They accused him of having a gun, abusing kids, raping them, of everything. And it was just because he was black and he was gardening and he was a man. Because obviously they wouldn't have done that to a woman. But, well, they would have been very unlikely to do that to a woman, because I don't think there are very many cases of that. They probably do exist, but it was the fact that there's a black man like in the park across the street, and they probably convinced themselves that he might do something, or maybe they were just having fun, or they thought it'd be amusing to keep setting the police on this guy in a place where they could see it happen. I can't really speak to their motivations, but that is a malicious accusation. They're making multiple accusations against the guy. They're all completely without any credit whatsoever, and it's quite easy to see from any investigation that it's malicious. That's really what we're talking about. So people who are merely mistaken or don't have enough evidence, they have nothing to fear from the kind of thing that we're talking about, because they are quite clearly not doing that. You have to have actual evidence that they're doing that before you can go forward with that. Otherwise, it's just a false accusation against them.
I just know what it really says about society that someone in that situation that you said came to your forum would assume that they had not consented and had been raped. Like that it's been put in their head that that's what's going to be done to them. And that they assume that they have been a victim of some sort.
Well, I'm not sure if they were testing us or if they wanted to get some kind of confirmation or something. I honestly don't know what their motivation was for asking. But I mean, we're not really that's not really why that sub exists. But we did try to advise them, and we did say to talk to the police and to get a rape kit to check if anything happened and stuff like that, because obviously we're on the side of the victim here, and whichever gender the victim is doesn't really matter as long as we get justice for that victim. And if there's no victim at all, then even better. So we really just want to make sure that first there is a victim, and second that that victim gets justice.
See, I like the idea of referring to people who are falsely accused or maliciously accused as victims, because they are victims. They can go to prison, they can lose their jobs, and in prison, they can be assaulted and raped. They're very much victims of a very serious crime, and it should be taken seriously. And it's such nonsense to say that taking false accusations seriously is somehow victim blaming or victim shaming, because it's not. I mean, you would only have a consequence for a false accusation if the accusation was false. So nobody is saying that women should go to prison if they accuse a man of rape and they can't prove it. What we're saying is women should go to prison if they knowingly lie about a man committing sexual assault, if they knowingly make a false accusation maliciously. So I like the idea of referring to those accused of false accusations as victims. Because if you go to prison, at least in the United States, if you go to prison for a sex crime, you become a target for rape in the prison.
Yeah, there was an interesting quote I heard some time ago. I don't know who said it, but it's we've got to be careful who we send to prison because we're basically consenting for them to be raped.
That's very true. I mean, when you send someone to prison, you put them in a dangerous environment.
Yeah, with serial killers and like all kinds of nasty people and like people who'd stick you in the wherever just for a smoke, and it's
I think it's interesting that that's something that's considered a lot when women are being sentenced. What was that woman's name? The really famous case that slept with her student, and she claimed it was because of her antidepressant medication or her and because she said she had bipolar, so the antidepressant medicine made her manic. And her lawyer very famously said that she was too pretty for prison, and she got a very light sentence.
I don't know, but that does sound familiar. To
I'll
be
try
honest, I
to.
hear an awful lot of cases like that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's fairly common.
I mean, I've seen Guardian articles and things like that that basically say that all women are too pretty for prison. You know, it's just a thing that they do because it's like this urge to protect women is being basically used as a weapon against men.
I think there's been a certain amount of pressure being applied by feminist groups also to close all the women's prisons.
That's basically what I was talking about. I was also talking about that campaign by Julie Bindel and her friends to free all the female serial killers and stuff. It's the old, oh, she may have been found with bits of him in her boot, but it was all self-defense, I swear. And the insurance she got out beforehand was definitely self-defense against poverty specifically. Did anyone find that advert?
I'll try and have a look through now for you, Human.
Thank you. I just couldn't find it. Maybe I didn't scroll up high enough, but does anyone else have a topic they'd like to talk about? Parrot updates are acceptable.
Thing that's, I don't know if this is like completely related, but Eating Disorder Awareness Week is coming up, and eating disorders are very under recognized in men.
Sorry, what was that? I missed that, sorry.
Kathleen was talking about eating disorders in men and how little it's recognised.
Oh yeah, it is very much not recognised. Although I do remember seeing leaflets about it, that sort of thing in school. But it seemed to have been, it seems to have been gaining and then losing, what's the word? Public knowledge for quite some time now. Like it seems like every so often we'll get a burst of, oh yeah, men suffer from eating disorders at about the same rate, but you know, then it just sort of dies back down again. I should probably do a post about it because I don't think we've ever actually done a post about eating disorders. If you've got any stats or anything about it, then that would be good because that usually helps.
I have stats off the top of my head, but know a lot of people with eating disorders. I'm also involved in the horse racing community here in Kentucky, and it's very common in male jockeys.
Yeah, I have noticed they're often very, very skinny. I had an eating disorder when I was little, and the thing is that I didn't even think of it as that because nobody ever acknowledged it or questioned it or anything like that. And I think it's partly because I was having like nobody breakfast at my boarding school was unsupervised. Lunch was in one place, dinner was supposed to be a snack in another place. I wasn't having lunch and I was having basically the snack for dinner. So I really wasn't eating anything for like 2 years. And I didn't really feel any hunger pains or anything like that. So yeah, I'm it stunted my growth and yeah.
And I know that I'm not sure if this is still true, but for a while it was much harder for people to get treatment in the UK under the NHS to get a bed as a male eating disorder patient.
I can imagine that would be true, yeah. I mean, the NHS seems to be fairly egalitarian, but at the same time, you do get points for being a man if you've got COVID that prevents you being hooked up to respirators.
And I don't know how much that goes into just it like I think there are more women than men, even though it is common in men, and they build the units as women only units oftentimes, and they target treatment towards women, but you know they've set up a system where a man doesn't get recognized until they're much older than a female, and they've had the disorder much longer. The longer the disease persists, the harder it is to treat, and then once they are recognized, they can't get treatment.
Yeah, that does sound pretty typical for men's issues, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't want to speculate on who has it more because I've heard uh, some people say it's 50-50, and I've heard some people say that actually boys probably have it more. But you know, I could not tell you either way. I mean, it doesn't really matter to be honest. It just matters that the boys and men who are suffering from this get treatment. It is one of those conditions where the sufferer often does not want to be treated because they don't see anything as wrong. as what they see as wrong is their actual weight, and they want to be as thin as possible, or they, they gorge themselves constantly, which is another thing that can happen. I mean, you can literally feel hungry all of the time, and just like naturally, your natural state is constant hunger, and so you eat and you eat and you eat. And pica is another eating disorder where you eat random things, and in a woman, I think it would be recognized, but in a man, they often get in the Guinness World Records for eating a plane or something like that.
Yeah, and a lot of times when people think of eating disorders, they're thinking of anorexia and bulimia, and there's a lot of other eating disorders, and a lot of them are more dangerous, even statistically.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. There's one where you, well, it's basically bulimia anyway, but you eat a bunch of laxatives, and so you're eating, and then you are basically, you know, it's all passing through you too fast to be digested. So it doesn't actually matter how much you're eating. You're just like shoveling it through you, and you're getting thinner, even though you're eating cake and stuff like that. And you can get
Yeah,
medication that binds to fat and stuff and stops it being digested.
that's just a subcategory of bulimia. It's because people don't always just throw up. You can also exercise purge. You can purge with laxatives. There's a huge problem in the bodybuilding community. What is the drug that decouples ATPase?
I'm not
Basic
sure.
So it decouples your ATPase. So basically, as your body is trying to burn energy, it just releases it as heat because it can't harness it as energy. It was originally developed for Russian soldiers to keep them warm, but it's passed around a lot in bodybuilding gyms. It kills people because you basically overheat to death, and they can't cool you down. You cook to death, but it burns 10,000 calories a day if you're taking it every day. And so it's
Damn.
the biggest people that are dying. It's male bodybuilders and female medical students.
Yeah, that sounds like dangerous stuff.
Oh, I mean, obviously it is. It's bad choice. Don't do it.
Yeah. I can see it being very, 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 very attractive though to a lot of people. Like imagine if you're very fat and you feel like you can have this, but then all that fat is insulation.
Yeah. So I guess female medical students, a lot of them are highly perfectionistic and they understand the science and find out about it. And then male bodybuilders, they want to burn off all the fat to show their muscles. It was a huge thing a couple years ago in the UK. You all had like 150 people die one year. It's not available really in the US. You can buy it online in the UK though, and people were dying left and right that were taking it.
Yeah, I don't think that stuff should be legal. Like unless you have a prescription, and I can't imagine what you'd prescribe it for.
You can't get it prescribed. In the UK, you buy it as like fertilizer and it says not for human consumption, but people that buy it,
Ah,
they're doing with it.
I think I've heard of this. This sounds familiar. People eating fertilizer. Yeah, that's that does sound familiar. But yeah, probably should stick something in it that makes you sick or something, just to stop people eating it. Because I mean, I'm, you wouldn't just cook it; it would be horribly painful, I think.
So it looks like I'm looking at the statistics. It looks like eating disorder not otherwise specified is about the same prevalence in males and females. So that's any avoidant restricted disorder that you don't meet a certain weight criteria or that you're not specifically doing it because of your body weight, like because you want to have a low body weight. Diabulimia is more common in females. Anorexia is more common in females. Bulimia averages them out again.
That's
But
quite interesting.
it's probably some things are underdiagnosed in males because they'll say, well, they have less of a desire to be thin because of society. Some people would say that. So doctors look at them and say, well, they're just underweight. Let's ask them to eat more instead of look at the psychology behind it and think that it's actually something that's motivated.
Yeah. Do you know of any other eating disorders other than the ones we've mentioned so far?
Eating bigorexia is a type of body dysmorphia where people think that they have less muscle than they do and they want to build more muscle. That's more prevalent in males, heavily more prevalent in males. Then there's pica, like you mentioned, eating disorder not otherwise specified, avoidant restrictive intake disorder. That's when people are like they have like amitophilia or not amitophilia, emetophobia, where they're like afraid of vomiting or they're afraid of diarrhea, so they become afraid of many foods. Eating when people like only eat organic vegetables and refuse to eat anything else. There's a whole list of them. Let me see.
There's that one way you basically only eat one kind of food as well. There was quite a famous case years ago of this guy who only ate carrots, turned orange, and died.
He only ate what?
He only ate basically carrots and carrot smoothies.
I would say that
And
that would be almost some sort of obsessive compulsive disorder, or it would go into orthorexia.
yeah, it could be. I mean, it does sound like the health nut version of it. I mean,
Yeah.
there are ones where one was, I think, a boy who would only drink Nesquik and eat pork sausages and a couple of other things.
That might
And
be avoidant restrictive.
yeah, that's the kind of thing that you've really got to get on because he was going blind because of it.
It's just like an alcoholic that's not getting the right nutrients.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it can cause brain damage and stuff like that.
there's
Lack of
rumination
brain development.
disorder and chew and spit as well. Rumination
And
disorder.
doing what?
There's rumination disorder and there's chew and spit as well. Those are two different. Rumination disorder, it's more common in children. People swallow things and then they like spit them back out up in their mouth, like kind of like a cow. It's named after cows, and then they re-chew it and they swallow it. And chew and spit is when people eat things like they eat a normal sized plate of food, but they spit it out after they chew it. And then muscle dysmorphia and bigorexia are much more common in men. And muscle dysmorphia is just the body dysmorphic disorder where you think that you are not muscular enough. And it's like it's just like an anorexic that thinks they're much fatter than they are. And then bigorexia also involves like steroid use and things like that.
Yeah, the chew and spit one's got to really mess with your body because it's going to trick your body into thinking that the food isn't doing anything. Like it's going to, basically you're going to stop desiring food because it just doesn't, you don't get anything from it.
I think some of what it can do too is it messes with people's insulin because your insulin can be released when your mouth recognizes sugar. So you're releasing insulin, but you're not having that sugar to be stored away. So it can cause things like low blood sugar.
Yeah, that is quite interesting.
And then diabulimia is shockingly common. And that's just when a type 1 diabetic doesn't inject their insulin. So basically they can eat, and if they don't inject their insulin, their body doesn't store any of that sugar. So it passes through their body. And it's shockingly prevalent in young female type 1 diabetics, and it's very dangerous. People can go blind, people can lose their toes. But I've seen some statistics that are like upwards of 70% of type 1 female diabetics in like early teen to like early 20 age range can be diagnosed with it, which is a shockingly high amount because they see it as like a eat and get away with it free card without purging and things like that.
Mm. I was actually thinking that they are possibly avoidant of the needles, but that does sound like another good reason why they might do that.
I think a lot of times they recognize that the insulin is what makes them store fat.
Mm.
And people feel out of control because to have their blood sugar at an even level, they have to eat and they have to inject their insulin. And they know by doing that, it's going to maintain their weight. And they physically cannot lose weight like someone else because to maintain their blood sugar, they have to do that every couple hours. And they feel a loss of control over their body because of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Are there any others that we might talk about? I mean, obviously, I don't want to get into the really freaky ones because I'm pretty sure that cannibalism is one of those eating disorders. Or it could be considered a range of disorders, possibly.
I don't think cannibalism is a recognized eating disorder, actually.
Okay, maybe not then, but it's certainly a recognized disorder, isn't it? That like Jeffrey Dahmer's who get like a thrill out of it or
Yeah.
whatever.
So I've done actually a little bit of research on cannibalism. So cannibalism, I might be missing one, but there's like a certain number of categories it can go into. It can go into ritualistic cannibalism, which is things like people eating relatives or eating members of like opposing tribes to show their strength. And then there is survival cannibalism, which is almost always actually forgiven by the court of law, which is like if someone dies, you eat them, like the famous case of the soccer team in the Alps. There's something called like it's sexual cannibalism, which is usually when you're having like serial killers and sadistic people. And there might be one other form that I'm forgetting. But I think you're thinking of like the crazy serial killers, which is like sadistic sexual motivation.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking. But I was actually thinking of those weird people who like post adverts looking for people to eat. Like yeah.
I think that is just gonna go into like a paraphilia or like some sort of fetish that's become very, very unhealthy.
There was actually a case of that in Germany. What you were just talking about, Human.
Armin Mendez, I think, or whatever. What's his name?
Yeah, that's the one.
I think there was a case of that fairly locally to me. Like somebody posted like something on a forum or something, and they got somebody to agree with it, but then that person didn't show up, and they got arrested or something.
What's actually, I think, really interesting, I think I've told you all I love documentaries, but what's really interesting is the motivation behind that, like, is kind of surprising on some of it. So there's some people that are very sadistic. Those are the people that go out and kill people and eat them to have power over them. But then, like Armin Mendez, that case, and the guy that wanted to be eaten, that's actually psychologically, they want to like become a part of someone so they never leave them, or have someone become a part of them so they'll never be alone. It's almost kind of sad, like that they feel like that. That's also, it's related to the people that have that fetish where they want to be swallowed.
Yeah, that's an odd one. It sounds like one of those hyper submissive things, like where it's not just that they. To be honest, we're getting into a territory which is completely off of track. So maybe we should get this back on track again. Has anyone got any interesting things they want to talk about? I do actually have one, but
It's your show, Human.
all right. I actually have a couple if you want to take a look at the chat.
So the Jodi Arias, the Travis Alexander, I know a lot about that case. What part of it do you want to talk about? Or that's not what you posted, is it?
No, my partner was talking about that when we were discussing women getting lighter prison sentences.
What was she sentenced to in the end? Jodi Arias.
Life without parole.
Do you think that that's a light sentence for the crime?
Well, most men would have been executed for that, to be honest.
Was she in a state that allowed execution?
Apparently, yes. I don't know anything about the case. Do you want to speak? No. My partner does know about it. So hang on 2 seconds.
Okay.
She wanted the, but then just because of the jury didn't agree with it, so
Right. Apparently, it was due to the personal beliefs of the jury or something. Some of them didn't believe in the death penalty.
This is all coming back to me. So she originally said she wanted the death penalty, but she actually said before sentencing that she no longer wanted the death penalty because it would hurt her family and because she thought she could still be a contributing member to society. She talked about the fact that like she donated her hair and she believed that she could continue to do things like that, which I thought was a terrible excuse. She
Wait,
about the death penalty. Yeah, she said that she could still continue to do things like educate other prisoners, and she said that like she'd done things to contribute to society, like donating her hair, and that she was going to continue to do that, and that she thought it would be too painful for her family and it would hurt other people's lives if she was executed, because she originally did ask to be executed. But I think with her, she was kind of being melodramatic when she did that whole thing with the death penalty. Like when she was like, I want to be executed, I don't want to live. Because she also said that she claimed it was self-defense, and she never said it wasn't self-defense. But she accidentally took pictures on her phone of a lot of the murder and her like dragging his body around.
this case seems very familiar. Was that case where she slit his throat and then stabbed him a bunch of times and then shot him while he was sitting down? And this was after they took a bunch of pictures of each other naked and stuff, and she tried to wash the camera in the washing machine.
Yes, it's that case.
I wouldn't trust the word that came out of that woman's mouth, because she changed her story like 3 or 4 times, and she was trying to distract the police, and she would. I've seen the interview tapes, and they are breathtaking.
Yeah. She like does a headstand and does the splits and dances around the room, and she's cuckoo.
Deconstructs a sandwich. Then she started off with this alibi that she set up for herself in the middle of the desert, and then that fell apart, and suddenly she's like she launches a new case which forgets about the alibi completely, and like she kept forgetting her own story and stuff like that. It was very interesting to watch.
Is she the same woman? Sometimes I like confuse the documentaries. Is she the same woman that like sat there and like sung "Oh Holy Night" to herself in the interview room too?
She did a lot of weird stuff in the interview room. Like, I'm not sure, but she did pretend to be asleep for like 5 seconds when the guard went past. Like, she put her head down on the table as the guard was coming down the corridor, and then as soon as the guard was gone, she was like, "Boop! Oh, that was a refreshing nap." It was very strange.
I think that there's some cases like we're talking about, like this woman and the Mendez, the cannibal man, that they're just so aberrant and like not members of normal society. I don't know if we should even, like, when we're talking about just general rights, even bring up some of these cuckoo people because they're just so abnormal and uncommon that it's just not like it's not how humans act usually.
I can understand why you're saying that. I mean, I do think that we need to build laws with cuckoo crazies in mind. But I think that like as long as the law is fair and just, they're gonna sweep up people like that. But the trick is making sure that people like that don't ever get out again, because they're just going to keep doing stuff like that.
I think that laws should keep people safe, but I just don't know if you're ever going to be able to prevent some of these people's actions because they're so inexplicable and unpredictable.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of unpredictable. I mean, it's like that whole shoe bomber thing, I think, is a good example of that. And they added an entire extra step to the boarding process because of it, and I don't think anyone else has tried it.
Yeah, because a lot of times the first time someone commits these crimes, it's not illegal because no one thought of it before. No one predicted they'd have to protect against that eventuality.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing where medicine bottles didn't used to have safety seals on them because nobody thought that anyone would, just go along in the shop and start injecting poison into them. It's that just thought never crossed anyone's mind, because why would you?
Yeah. And it makes the
Yeah.
world, eventually it'll make the world much more expensive and much more difficult to navigate if we make a law for every weird ass person that decides to do something crazy.
Yeah, that is a fair point. It's like those signs you see pictures of in memes where people are asking, what happened that they made it so you're not allowed to go into their shop in a gorilla suit? Like what event caused them to feel like they had to ban gorilla suits specifically? You know.
Exactly.
Mm. Okay, so we've talked about false accusations. We've talked about that crazy lady who comes up surprisingly often. Any other interesting things that people have got? We could talk about the things I brought up, which were the Danish consent app, which I thought was quite interesting and completely poorly thought out. Or we could talk about that image I posted of the man carrying all of the girls' bags, which I thought was quite interesting.
Read that, but I do have a question about it. So I was in a very specific situation where I was camping with someone, and we were camping on a beach, and we had to hike about 4 miles through dry sand dunes. And we were each carrying 60 pounds of water because we were going to be there a full week, and it was 100 degrees. And the person I was dating at the time he basically said, "You're going to carry exactly what I carry." And I was 98 pounds at the time, and I really, really struggled hiking these 4 miles. And afterwards, he was a 250-pound man. Afterwards, I was like, I really think you probably should have carried a little more water because I was carrying my body weight through dry sand. Do you think that that's something that's equal?
No, I'm not claiming that everyone should try to keep up with like the strongest person in the group or anything like that. My observation with that was literally that they all had these bags that they packed themselves, which were light enough for them to consider carrying around all day. And this guy ended up carrying all of them, and it probably started off with him offering to carry one of their bags after somebody said they were tired or something, and it's just like, oh yeah, could you carry my bag too? Could you carry my bag too? And stuff like that. I mean, at least that's the story I'm coming up with in my head. And I just find it very interesting that you very often see women out shopping and the man is carrying all of the bags and she's carrying nothing at all. And I feel like I don't feel like the man should be a pack animal. I do feel like the woman should at least try to carry some things. Like, for example, with you carrying all that weight, I feel like you each could have carried as much weight as you could have tolerated. I feel like that's a fairer option.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I did end up literally being like, I cannot carry this because I just physically could not do it. But there are some men that will not allow you to carry things. That
I
does.
have heard of these men, but I've never met one, I don't think.
Oh, that does happen.
Would
And there
that
are.
not be social conditioning?
I probably, I guess.
I mean, I don't personally think that's something that people should encourage. I mean, I feel like everyone should carry their own weight. I mean, that's a phrase which scales to the person, really. It's like it's it's just basically fairness. You can carry say 30 pounds, that guy can carry 60 pounds, so that's what you carry, and the guy doesn't carry your weight as well just because he's stronger, and you don't get overburdened just because he's stronger either.
I think in most situations you should haul your own weight. Like if that hadn't have been a situation with so much water, you should carry the water you're going to drink, that you're going to require. You shouldn't need someone else to support you in that way.
I mean, it does sound a lot like you were carrying extra water, but
We each had 60 pounds of water, but we were going to be there for more than a week and there was no fresh water. So, and it was over 100 degrees. So you assume a gallon of water per person on an expedition like that. And water gets very heavy. And so I set off carrying all of my water, but I just physically couldn't do it in the dry sand dunes because you sink. It was the hardest hike I've ever done. It was only a 4 mile hike.
yeah, there is actually a device with like a barrel that is full of water, and you basically just tow it along behind you. That seems like something that might have been useful there, but obviously
I have a purification system now, but we didn't. I guess we didn't have the money to invest at that time in a bunch of gear and things like that. And I also didn't. I guess I was stupid and I didn't really think. I thought. I mean, I can carry 60 pounds on a backpacking trip, but I didn't really understand how hard it was going to be in that dry sand. I just didn't. I had not predicted how hard it was going to be to do.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. I mean, and nobody's really saying that you've got to carry more than you ought, but it's like with this guy, I feel like that image makes me feel like he's being used, and I kind of feel sorry for him. I mean, either the girls themselves are using him, or he has been conditioned by other people, as Painter said, to be used. And it's probably a bit of both, to be honest, because often things like that are. But I mean, I don't. I'm not trying to call him out as a bad person, for letting, like, quote unquote, letting the side down or anything. I just feel like this is a situation I've seen before quite a lot, and it's more infuriating when it's shopping and it's his money and he's carrying everything as well. That kind of that kind of really bugs me. But if they're sharing weight and she's carrying what she can, he's helping, that sort of thing, and she's going to, like, say thanks and stuff like that, and maybe do something for him later if he was carrying an awful lot. It's. I mean, there was somebody in there saying that he does stuff for his wife and she does stuff for him, and that is the ideal situation. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what I'm trying to get at.
That picture too, it almost seems to me there's certain personality types that can be ganged up on. It almost seems to me like, I mean, we're obviously all making up a story in our head about what happened here. We don't know. But that group of girls kind of ganged up on him and said, "Oh, you should hold all of our bags. Just do it."
Yeah, I can see that too. He does have that kind of look to him that he'd be easily sort of pushed over. I mean, I do think that. I mean, I'm being charitable by saying that maybe he offered to carry his girlfriend's bag and the rest piled on. But like, it could obviously have been all of the girls are like, you're the man, you're the big strong guy. Oh, could you carry my bag? And then one of the others goes, oh, could you carry my bag as well? And then it just snowballs.
I'm looking at that picture and I'm seeing something else as well. And this is a sign of my social conditioning. And that is that they're actually all standing on the wrong side of the pavement. The girl should be on the other side of him.
How so?
Why do you say that? Because that's a new concept, because originally men walked next to buildings and women walked on the outside because people poured waste out their windows. So men always walked closest to the buildings to protect women from that. So the construction, like the more modern thing that men walk next to the car to protect a woman, that's much more recent.
That's what I was always taught, that you have your wife, girlfriend, or your children walk closest to the building, so that if a car comes down the road, for instance, it would be you that would get hit. I mean, no matter which way you look at it, it's going to be the man taking the pain.
This is interesting. This is a lot of new stuff I'm hearing here.
People are saying they've never heard it, but well, I don't know. Perhaps it's just growing up in the southeast of England. I don't know.
Well,
Definitely heard it before, but in less developed countries, that it's still that men walk next to the building traditionally.
Like that's
Mm.
in you're taught at cotillion that men are supposed to be walking next to the road.
No, it is quite interesting. I mean, I honestly don't go walking with that many women, especially this year. So it's, I've never really encountered this. But I mean, I suppose it makes sense from the cultural perspective to do that. But I don't like the implications, obviously.
Yeah. Has anyone else? I'm just now thinking of this. Has anyone else had any like formal sexist training like cotillion?
Me, no. No, I haven't
No.
had any formal sexist training, although I have met some people who are very formally sexist. But yeah, have you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never really considered it until I just brought it up. But yeah, so I took cotillion for years. I had a debutante ball, and there's a lot of rules about men and women and what the man has to do, and who introduces who and all of that. There's a whole lot of rules.
Could you run
What
through
kind of?
some of them?
I mean, you always wait for a man to open your car door. You always let a man pull out your chair. A man always pulls out your chair. If you're in a receiving line, the man always introduces you. You do not introduce them. In dancing, you always let the man lead. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Who is allowed to drink from a wine glass first? There's a whole lot of stuff. And then, I mean, even like at a debutante ball, it's always young women who pay to attend. Traditionally, well, super traditionally, elite families would provide men for the girls, but after that, in the United States, we always took our partners from the Naval Air Force Base. That's what we did. Like the Air Force Base provided the men that escorted us. So there's like a whole lot of actually super sexist rules.
Huh, that's interesting. What's the context of this? Where was this class and stuff? Was it in school?
No, so my cotillion was done by my local women's club, and it's pretty common. Like you learn to waltz, you learn what forks to use, you learn how to do like a receiving line. And then a debutante ball, now it's almost always a charity event. So mine was in South Carolina at St. Cecilia's. There's not a whole lot of them left in the United States, but it's a charity event. And women always wear a white gown. You do it between 16 and 18. Traditionally, it was for a young woman to be introduced to society, and to say that you're eligible to start dating, basically. But now it's become very much like a formal charity thing that honestly mostly wealthy families do still. And it is a way to meet people, to meet other families, make connections.
Sounds an awful lot like finishing school to me.
It's not a whole school. Like cotillion, we just went every other week for like 4 years, and we learned all of the formal dances. And then not everyone that does cotillion has a debutante ball. Sometimes they just call a debutante ball cotillion, though. It's like the last step of cotillion. It's done in the southern United States a lot, but it actually started in Europe. So I know that there's still some big ones in Europe. Let me try to look it up. You've probably seen the pictures. Like everyone wears the white dresses. Let me see.
Maybe. I mean, it does sound like typical chivalry, like chivalrous behavior to me.
I'll see if I can find my picture, actually. Actually, I don't think I have it on here.
What about talking about arranged marriages, Human?
That could certainly work.
Obviously, with arranged marriages, we always hear that it's against women and what have you, but there is a strong argument to be made that it's also against men.
Well,
How often are men underage or very young when an arranged marriage is finalized? Because I think a lot of times the big exception, like that people have to it, is that the women are often so young.
well, the only study I'm aware of into the male side found 200 million underage forced male grooms in around the world. But the thing that has to be said is that this was the first study that they did, and they only did this study because the other studies into forced brides turned up a lot of forced grooms as well, because quite often what happens is that a young girl is married off to a young boy, and the boy might be slightly younger or older than her. But I mean, a lot of forced marriages, they do involve like adults and like underage kids, basically, and but there are an awful lot where basically the it's just two kids being married together. And I had an article on this which had some big glossy photos of some very glum looking kids being married to each other in like India, I think it was, but I'm afraid I lost it ages ago. It was a very interesting article, and it seemed very clear to me from the article that this was a practice which was affecting men, as much as women, at least in terms of the ones being married to same age same age partners. When it comes down to adults, it's very hard to know because the data just isn't there. People don't want to find it. They're not looking. It's very much that kind of situation. They went out looking for forced brides, and they accidentally found forced grooms. That's about the extent of it.
If you could find that article, that would actually be really interesting. That's funny because if I'm being completely honest, I hadn't really thought of that side of it that much.
Yeah, we do have. Sorry, I was going to say we do have some stuff on the citation list about it, but there's barely anything. Like that, there isn't information to get really. I mean, if people can turn it up, then great, we'll put it on there. But as far as we know, it's just completely unstudied, and which is very, very annoying and frustrating because boys who are forced to be grooms are often forced to quit school and are expected to start earning money for same age partner or an older woman who they're expected to provide for a grown woman in some cases. And you think about how crazy that is. It's just like mind-boggling. You've got like an 11-year-old who has to go and get a job, and it's going to be some really crappy job, and this is basically their entire future cut short. They are never going to have a good job. They're going to always be earning the least amount of money possible. They're going to be minimum wage for the rest of their life because they have no qualifications. They have the education of an 11-year-old, which is to say at most 5 years of formal education. And that's nothing. So, you know, these are kids who have just learnt to read being married, and it's really kind of disgusting.
Have a look in voice chat or in voice discussion, human, at the story I've just posted. And also look at the picture.
Gee, that ain't creepy or anything. Phew. Is this that 9-year-old boy who wanted to marry this woman or something, or was pushed into it, and then it was basically a fake marriage? And is this him now actually marrying her for real?
I'm just reading up on it now.
Look at the kids' faces in the background. Everybody knows that's not right. Nobody's smiling. Is it a situation because you do see some like ceremonial weddings? Like I recently saw like a little girl that married like she had like terminal cancer and she like married one of the nurses, the male nurses on the unit. Like, but it was like a thing so she'd like get to dress up and cuz she like was real fond of him, but it was just like it wasn't it was sweet, it wasn't creepy, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just reading the article now. I'm not sure what to make of it.
I'm trying to work out the age he was when the first one happened, because yikes.
And if that picture is from the actual event, then don't let your kids anywhere near her.
Yes, I just got to read it, and oh boy, this started when he was 8, which means it probably started before he was 8, actually. So this is something that's been ongoing for a while. I mean, I have a general rule that if you have seen somebody in nappies and it wasn't like a medical thing, then you probably shouldn't be getting married to them.
The thing is that they're claiming, or that his mother is claiming, tradition and sort of religious connotations by the looks of it.
Yeah, I'm not getting a big tradition vibe from that crowd there. They don't look like this is a normal thing that goes on there. This looks like an awful lot like some family's weird drama that's being put on public display to me.
And apparently the son asked for it. Ugh.
If it's the boy I'm thinking of, then there is an article about this before.
Apparently in India there's a whole like subcategory of like types of abuse called groom kidnapping in forced marriages.
that doesn't surprise me.
Nothing in India surprises me, to be honest. There's been some really freaky stuff from there. I mean, they call India the rape capital of the world, but a big part of the reason that it gets those stats so high is quote unquote rape on false promise of marriage. So consensual sex, but he backs out of marrying her, or he never intended to, or she just accuses him of it.
Yeah, that you had that in the United States. It was called like seduction by false pretense before. So like if someone kind of said they were going to marry you or they were in a relationship and then everyone knew that you were no longer a virgin and then no one else wanted to marry you basically. It looks like that this groom kidnapping is a practice that after dowry has been abolished, they're basically kidnapping young men from well-off families to be able to assure that their daughter will be supported, which is super messed up.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in India is really messed up. Okay, well, it's now, let's see, 7:30. We've been going for 2.5 hours. Does anyone want to continue, or shall we call this for tonight? I think it's been a fairly successful one.
Yeah, I've got to go anyway because I'm doing a podcast on stereo in half an hour.
Oh, really? All right, well, good luck with that.
Thank you. It's going to be a dark one, unfortunately. We're going to be talking, or the person I'm talking to is going to be discussing parental alienation from their point of view.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds like a fun one. Yeah, I've heard I've heard enough of those stories to know that that's gonna be a doozy. All right then. Good night, everyone. Then.
Night, guys.